Wendy, if you're going to ask me what I would tell my younger self at some point in this
Okay, great.
podcast,
Please do tell. Do
I
tell.
would absolutely say anything you think is going to be difficult, multiply it by 10 times. That's how much more difficult it is going to be. People do not understand the level of difficulty this stuff takes, and they significantly underestimate their resilience. Most people are not resilient, or they can't handle it. They can't, they're like, oh, you're confident, you get success because you're confident. No, no, no. Confidence comes from success rather than vice versa. Courage
Mm,
is what creates success, you know?
mm. If there were a real life most interesting man in the world, Robert Bruski might just be it. From sneaking into Hollywood studios to try to pitch to James Cameron, to pioneering North America's first VR arcade franchise, his journey is nothing short of extraordinary. A Laurier grad with a background in economics and investment management, Robert has a knack for spotting the difference between a good business and a great one. But that was just the beginning. He co-founded Pipe Dream Interactive, taking his innovations straight to Hollywood before launching Control V, now the world's largest VA arcade franchise. I had the absolute pleasure of sitting down with Robert on my Powered by People podcast, where we dive deep into the minds of innovators, leaders, and change makers. In this episode, we explored the wild entrepreneurial journey, the psychology behind business success, and the importance of thinking beyond the numbers. Trust me, you do not want to miss this one. Robert, I'm
Yo, what's
ex
shaking, Wendy?
okay. I am extra excited. I was excited.
Okay.
We met briefly, and I'm going to tell you right out of the gate, like within 10 seconds, you have like fantastic energy.
Stop it. Okay, give me some more. Give me some more.
I'm probably not the first person to tell you that, I imagine. Okay.
Yeah, I get that. Yep.
Yeah, it's awesome. So right away, I'm like, okay, he has this great energy. So I was excited. And then I did a little bit of, online research. Okay.
Okay.
And I'm reading
Stalking. Yep.
about you, stalking. And I'm like, Robert could be the guy in the most interesting man in the world, those ads.
The
So I'm
Dos
going to
Equis
finish
ads. Yep.
today. I'm going to finish
Okay.
saying, stay thirsty, my friends.
Okay. Okay. I dig it. I dig it. Let's do it.
Oh my gosh. Like, I don't know where to start because there's just so many things that I want to ask you about. So I'm going to start kind of at the beginning, maybe not the day you were born, but I do want to know about young Robert. So where did you grow up? So you went to Laurier, but did you grow up in Waterloo region or did you grow up somewhere
Yeah.
else?
Yeah, yeah. I grew
Yeah.
up in KW. I went to Resurrection High School. I went
Okay.
to Southridge Elementary School. I went to St. Paul's. I went to Queensmount. Just a bunch of schools around the region here.
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
And siblings?
I have a younger sister who's 4 years younger than I, and I look up to extremely. She's way
Oh.
more successful than I am.
Oh, amazing. Wow, that's great. So what were you like when you were young? Did we see this entrepreneurial tendency like in your early life?
When I was young, I was ludicrous. I was nuts. I was climbing fences, getting hit by cars. I was filming videos of like lip syncing to Michael Jackson with an open Swiss Army knife. My mother
Okay.
would be like, Robert, you got to stop this, you know?
Yes.
I was, like I was a good kid, great grades. Teachers loved me. But as soon as like any authority was not around, I
Yeah.
was like, all right, it's time to go crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
basically, like generally, fearless. So if there was an
Okay.
opportunity to be an
Yeah.
entrepreneur, I was like, all right, cool, let's give it a shot.
Yeah. Yeah. So it'd be no surprise. So people that have known you
No
your whole
surprise.
life, they're like, yeah, no, we saw this coming. This is not in a left field.
I think so. I mean,
Yeah.
if they
Yeah.
don't, I don't care.
No, totally, totally. Did
Yep.
you do any little business, ventures, when you were younger? Even things like, did you have a paper route? Did you have kind of any early jobs?
Yeah. So what I would do is on weekends, I would sneak into the closed courtyard of their elementary school where there was raspberry bushes, and I would pick all these raspberries and I'd go up
Mm,
and down the street selling them at a profit. So
amazing.
Yep.
Amazing.
I mean, I'd eat a lot of them too because I love fruits and I love
Uh-huh.
raspberries and all that sort of stuff. But from there, it just sort of continued. You know, when I was in the corporate world, so to speak, I was
Yeah.
always working on something on the side, building like a research management system or like social network for adrenaline
Mm-hmm.
junkies and whatever. You know, I just can't
Mm-hmm.
sit still. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that's just stayed. So one of the reasons I was asking, so my son actually showed some of this, entrepreneurial tendency early on. My husband's a musician. He
Hmm.
was doing a CD release, and my son asked, "Can I?" I think he was 5. Okay, asked if he could set up a table to sell
Okay.
things. So at
Cool.
that time, I'm like, "Honey, that's really sweet. That's cute. Whatever." But you know what I mean. This is about your dad. Like but he made some crafts, okay?
Okay.
And some of them were like shells or like a lollipop in a like napkin. Like they were, 5-year-old version of things.
Yep.
While we're setting up trying to like sell CDs and get people, he is working the room. He's walking up to people, taking their hand, bringing them over to his table
Awesome.
and selling stuff. He made $18.
That's the OG hustle. You know, everyone these days, you got to hustle and grind. I'm like, go set up a lemonade stand. You
I
know,
know, I
that's what you
know.
need to do.
So I was picturing, when I was reading about you, I'm like, I could see probably little Robert doing something like that, just, working
Yeah.
the room,
I had
making
really blonde
sales.
hair. It was always buzzed because I was running around and getting sweaty and dirty and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I
Oh
was.
yeah.
It's just like I just got accustomed to the word yes. If there's an opportunity, yes, let's do it.
Yeah, yeah, so great. Okay, so then you end up going to Laurier and you get a degree in economics. So that
Yeah.
feels, I don't know, that doesn't feel like where I would
Well,
think you would go.
yeah, so I applied to Laurier to the business program,
Uh-huh.
and I think that the requirement to get into the business program was a 95% high school average at that point, and I only had a 93. So my
Oh,
parents were obviously like,
terrible,
where's the
terrible.
rest? So the
Yeah.
default for Laurier was like,
Uh-huh.
we'll put you in economics. And I was
Oh.
heartbroken.
Mm.
But then when I got to school and, I had to take some business courses and I interacted with the business students and the economic students, I thought to myself, wow, economics is so much more valuable than the business program. I am so glad I'm in this
Mm.
because
Mm-hmm.
the business program 4 years and they try to teach such a myriad of different business concepts, operations, marketing. Like there's very little opportunity to focus there. Whereas with economics, one of the biggest takeaways was really thinking outside the box, like how does this affect the greater picture, the microeconomic picture, the macroeconomic picture, the legal impacts, or how the economy affects the law and the law affects the economy and all this sort
Mm.
of cool
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
all right, I dig this. This is for me.
Yeah, yeah. And then you spent ten years in the financial investment industry.
Yeah, yeah. I was
Yeah.
the Wolf of Wall Street, walking around with suspenders and a football,
Mm-hmm.
attacking a Bloomberg terminal. No, I'm
All
just kidding.
right.
But
Yeah.
yes, buy side investment management. Yeah,
Yeah. And one of the things that I read that you really learned is the ability to kind of identify what makes like a good business and what makes a bad
great,
business.
or good or
Or
great.
or
I
good
don't
or
even look
great.
at the bad
Yeah,
ones.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So share some of those insights. What are you looking for? What do you notice?
Well, in that world, it was looking at it from the standpoint of an investor, but it wasn't looking at it like I'm going to invest in like a mutual fund or put away retirement or whatever. We're looking at buying large, large quantities of these companies, lots of shares, like more than 10%. So you now have control over what's happening because you're such a
Hmm.
big stakeholder, right?
Yep.
So although you're not buying 100%, you're buying enough that you feel like there's ownership. So, contrary to what most people think, only about 10% of it is based on numbers. And that's the
Hmm.
easy
Hmm.
part, okay?
Okay.
You
Yeah.
whip up
Yeah.
like a 15-page discounted cash flow valuation, you find out how much the company's worth, and then you're seeing if its current price is at fair market value or if it's at like intrinsic value above or below, and you see if you can get it at a deal. That
Hmm.
was like just 10% of the work. The vast majority of it was thinking about, I mean, first of all, what's on internally? What's their governance like? What's their board like? How happy are their staff? What are their processes, procedures, operational software, etc.? but also how is the industry look on this? Like
Mm-hmm.
you could sit down and be like, oh, this radio company, everything lines up about it. But what is
Yep.
radio we're looking like from a grander standpoint, right? So that's
Mm.
another thing that I think a lot of people miss when they're starting a business. It's always so micro and very transactional. If I can make a product that people like and make that exchange, boom. But there's so many other factors
Yeah.
that go into it.
Mm-hmm. You're zooming out.
Yeah.
So, how long would an analysis like this take? Like, I noticed one of the things you talked about is how, like, the employee happiness or satisfaction is something you're paying attention to. What's that going to tell you?
Well, I mean, the length of the analysis depends on a few factors. Like some of them are external. Like sometimes you have to go visit the company and meet with
Mm-hmm.
people, right? So
Yeah.
you have to plan meetings and schedules and flights and all that sort of stuff. But ultimately, the amount of time you spend on it, I think it's kind of up to the person. Like
Mm-hmm.
there was analysts there that would spend months on a company and some that would spend weeks, right?
Okay.
And I love to follow Cody Sanchez, and one of the things she said is she's like, I'm not richer than you. I'm not smarter than you. The reason why I'm more successful than you is because I'm faster. By the time
Mm,
you've hemmed and hawed over a decision, I'm able to make that decision, fail twice, reposition myself, and then be successful, right? So for
mm-hmm.
me, it was
Yeah.
constantly like, let's just rock and roll and get this stuff done. So when it comes to the people component of it, I mean, such a tricky part. I got to tell you,
Yeah.
Wendy, because
Mm-hmm.
people can, when you do interviews, they can ace a resume and they can ace like an interview, and
Mm-hmm.
then they can show up and totally suck at it. You know what I mean? So trying to read people is such a unique skill set. You got to break them out of their comfort zone. You got to read between the lines. You got to look for like the smallest red flag that somebody else would just write off. But
Mm-hmm.
if they're suppressing this and it actually does come to fruition, I'm going to have a nightmare on my hands.
Mm, yeah. So, did you do this a lot? Did you do a
I
lot
do it
of?
all the time. I'm doing it to
Yeah.
you right now.
Oh, okay. Do tell. What are you figuring
I'm
out?
just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
It's like when you hang out with a therapist and you're like, are they doing like psychoanalysis on me right now? What are they seeing about me?
That's when you flip the tables and let me therapize the therapist.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So, would you like to do something like Dragon's Den or Shark Tank, or have opportunities like that where people come and pitch concepts to you? Would you like that kind of thing?
I mean, being on the side, like we've been invited to Dragon's Den as a pitcher many times, multiple businesses that I've been a
Okay.
part of.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We've always declined.
Okay,
Um,
why? Why?
because you have absolutely no control over the production. So they
Mm,
can put like the whimsical, goofy music and make you look like one of the write-off
ah,
businesses, right? They
okay.
could clip it together to only have the questions that you have a hard time answering or can't answer. Like it's totally up to the
Mm,
producers how they make this entertainment. So
I see.
there's so many
Mm-hmm.
facets that go into a business, and I don't even know how
Mm-hmm.
long these pitches are. They're probably hours. But from the standpoint of sitting in the chairs, I mean, I never really thought about myself there. I'd consider it, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't think it would be a decision that I'd make like yes or no because, you know, if you assuming you do have copious amounts of money that you can invest, that's just the beginning. Like
Mm-hmm.
now you have to deal with legal structures. Maybe you invest in an idea and the team really isn't the right one, and you got to
Mm-hmm.
deal with
Mm-hmm.
overhauls. You know, it's almost like starting a business, but rather than starting it as the grunt worker and working up, you're starting it as the top of the food chain, and now you got to learn everything and fix everything, or put fuel on everything that's working.
Mm. So let's pretend that I am the investor,
Okay.
but I'm hiring you to help me choose a business to invest in.
Okay.
Okay. So, what are you seeing right now? What's something that a business that you might consider would be a good investment or a great business right now?
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the things to always consider is something that has repeatable income, you know, where
Hmm.
when you sell to a person once, they will
Hmm.
continue to come back and you don't have to spend your marketing spend on getting new customers all the
Hmm.
time.
Okay. Hmm. Hmm.
At Control V, the business that I own right now, we have a 40% return customer rate, which dominates any one of our competitors.
Mm-hmm.
That's a facet of the business model. We can get into that later,
Yeah.
but that's something you should always build in. The subscription boxes are nice and fun because people, or something
Mm-hmm.
like Netflix. I don't know if you've been watching the Netflix markets lately, but up until the recent economic turmoil, they've hit over $1,000 per share. They're getting into like stock split territory. Um, but that's one thing, is repeatable income.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that I look at is something that you get paid before you deliver.
Say
Like
more
people
about
pay.
that. Give me some examples of that.
So, for example, I mean, Control V, people will book online and pay, and then they come in and play VR, right?
Yeah.
And I guess really kind of any store, right? Like if you're going to a grocery store and you want to eat an
Mm-hmm.
apple, you need to pay for it first. I mean, that's a
Okay.
little more
Mm-hmm.
short term. I'm
Sure.
thinking of more like long term payments ahead of time,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
On the flip side, if you're collecting payment after, like most consulting companies, hey,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be your life coach. I'm going to be your
Mm-hmm.
business coach. I'm going to be whatever. We're going to set up a monthly call, and then I'm going to send you an invoice. Well,
Mm-hmm.
now you got to
Mm-hmm.
be an accounts receivable person to keep tracking that down. Why not
Mm-hmm.
just say, hey, if you want me, pay me first, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
love that. I love scalability. But a lot of times when people think about scalability, they think about scalability in revenue, which is good. Don't get me wrong. But I think they overlook scalability in expenses. So this is economies of scale and economies of scope, where you can scale without increasing your expenses, your fixed expenses, or at the very least, make your expenses a derivative of revenue. So if revenue goes up
Mm-hmm.
and down, your
Mm-hmm.
expenses float there. Um, did that answer your question?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
good.
yes. Is this still interesting for you to think about, talk about?
All the time, all the
Mm-hmm.
time, all
Mm-hmm.
the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of people ask me about Control V. So for anyone who's watching, it's a virtual reality arcade. I'm not a gamer. I'm not a VR guy. But you know what? I love the art of business. I love the art of the deal.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could be selling something that I'm like totally unassociated with, like women's hygiene products, right? But
Mm-hmm.
like just the nature of that business and looking for a client and trying to figure out the demographic and all that sort of stuff, it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And when
Mm-hmm.
you nail it, it's like winning a sports game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You have a lot of passion and energy around it. You alluded to Control V, your current main business right now. I see you have a lot of things that you have on the go, but
Yeah.
let's talk about it. So there's going to be people very familiar with it. There's going to be people that still don't really know, I think, what we're talking about when we're talking about virtual reality and that sort of thing. So honestly, give a very simple explanation of what it is. And if somebody were to come to one of your locations, like what's the experience like?
Gotcha. Okay, so Control V is a virtual reality arcade. Exactly what it sounds like. This is a brick and mortar physical facility that you go to. You pay by the hour. You put on virtual reality equipment. Some people call them goggles. They're called head mounted displays. And you experience virtual reality. So, what is virtual reality? I mean, this is nothing that anyone I've ever met has been able to describe. Like, I speak to
Right. I know.
journalists and linguists. I'm like, can you
Sure.
please describe? No,
Star Trekky?
yeah, it's like
Yeah.
imagine you put a TV on your head and you're in the TV
Yeah.
show,
Yeah.
and you can
Yeah.
look around, do
Yeah.
stuff, and interact
Yes.
with it.
Yes.
But like it goes way beyond gaming. A lot of people say, okay, you're probably there shooting zombies. I mean, yes, we have a lot of zombies and you can shoot them.
Uh-huh.
Um, but there's stuff outside of that, right? Like we've got virtual reality escape rooms where you can, as a team of four, crawl through air vents and put weights into elevators to get on the top of a 4-story building to disarm a nuclear warhead, things you couldn't do in real life. We have experiences swimming with whales, hanging out with gorillas, the
Okay. I did not
dinosaurs.
know that. That's news
Yeah,
to me. I didn't know about those ones. Wow. Okay.
we got a lot of cool stuff, and it's not really the gamers that come in.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the gamers are young in school, so they're broke. I mean, they're paying for tuition. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so like this is people that come in for date nights. We had our second marriage proposal in VR last August.
No
They
way.
come in, like seniors will come in and play par 42 mini golf courses with their great grandchildren, or we'll take our equipment to seniors homes. We're big with
Mm-hmm.
the autism community, so it's really something for everyone. It's so cool. There's educational stuff like you do chemistry, astronomy, biology.
Mm.
It's wonderful.
Wow. So how many different games or options are there? And is it the same at all your locations or do some locations have more options?
Good. So in the world, there's tens of thousands of games. Like there's lots of indie developers developing them. We take a look at every game and it goes
Hmm.
through a 26-step vetting process to ensure that it meets our standards. We're not just willy-nilly taking something
Hmm.
because Batman's in it or whatever.
Sure.
Um, and then, so our library is about 200, and we add a
Amazing.
new one every month or two. But
Hmm.
quite frankly, people love to play the top 50 or 60 games. So we just kind
Hmm.
of ensure that
Hmm.
there's a genre there for everyone. And
Hmm.
that's what they'll see when they go into VR. So they don't stumble into something that's maybe not as popular or a different genre or difficult to grasp and ruin their first experience of virtual
Hmm.
reality.
Hmm. So my own curiosity, I have done it alone. Is it you can be in the same scene with somebody else, like and see
Yeah.
them?
Yeah.
Okay, I have not done that.
Well,
That
you
would
got
be
to do it.
I'm
Come
no
on
a
now.
hundred percent, 100%. I'm like, okay, I'm planning on like hanging up and looking at my schedule and booking something. Yeah, I mean, it sounds amazing because I've only probably done kind of the one version of it. It was very, very fun, but I love some of the things that you're talking about, some of the different experiences. That sounds
Hmm.
incredible. How many have you personally tried, played,
All of them.
experimented with?
All of
Really?
them. I have
Okay.
to. I
Okay.
have to, right?
What are
Like,
your favorites?
my favorites are the ones that nobody else really likes.
Okay. Like
I
what?
spend so there's this one, and I don't even think we have it in our library anymore because nobody played it except for me. But it's called Kitty Apocalypse.
Okay.
And so basically, you have this sort of like it's a tower defense game. So you've got this land, and you can place different lasers and machine guns and all that sort of stuff. And then when you press go, the spaceship lands and releases alien kittens. And you got to make sure that
Aliens.
you set up all the guns to kill them before they infiltrate your base. And if you make it through one wave, you can add more
Hmm.
guns and you do it again. So it's not very immersive, but frankly, I spend so much time with people on the phone
Mm,
in
mm,
meetings that I very
mm-hmm,
seldom get a chance to just be alone and just
mm-hmm.
do something mindless. And for me,
Sure.
that's the game that I love.
Sure. Yes. No, I can see that. That makes sense. Oh my goodness. What was the part of your journey that led to this? What came before the idea or the discovery, the launch of Control V?
That is an extremely long story, like
Okay.
circa 1 hour.
Go
Uh,
ahead.
okay. So okay, so basically, I get out of university. I have a degree in economics. I'm working at a bank. And over the course of, by the way, throughout university, I was working two jobs. I was working at a
Hmm.
bank and at a retailer. So I was working at TD Bank and Radio Shack. So
Okay.
I
Hmm.
didn't go to class, right? I sacrificed the 5% of like
Mm,
participation marks,
yeah.
did not show up to a single class, showed up to
Seriously.
write the exam. Yeah, I just worked
Really.
like 80 hours a week.
Wow.
That's how I
Okay.
financed all these
Yeah.
trips to Costa Rica and Peru.
Mm,
Anyway, so
hmm.
school's done. All right. So now I
Hmm.
have this really expensive education. Let's move on. So I moved from Radio Shack and I turn over to TD. I'm like, listen, you got to get me onto the trading floor. Like I need to be, working at TD
Hmm.
Securities, all that sort of stuff. And they're like, listen, Robert, we'd love to, but you've gone through one, two, three hierarchy progressions within 1 year. And our company policy is you can only do one per year. I was like, "Oh my gosh, okay. So basically, you're stonewalling me here. I'm going to go find
Mm,
another job." So I
hmm.
was driving around this place, and I found this kind of unique building. I went up, I looked in, I did some research, and it was a company called Fulcrum, which has changed names since then, and they do administration for hedge funds. I'm like, "All right, this is kind of in the same
Mm-hmm.
realm, maybe even a little closer." So I get in there. The only job they have is fund accounting. I've never done accounting in my life. By the way, I own a bookkeeping company now. Uh,
Oh, okay.
yeah. So
Of course you do.
yeah. So they give me this hedge fund out of Minnesota that's totally a mess. I have no idea what we're doing. At that point, everything's done on Excel. There's no accounting software. They fly in a VP from the Cayman Islands who's sorting this thing out. Like he's doing the work and I'm just watching. What's he doing? Okay, this is happening. Boom. And so I'm able to keep doing that, right? So at a certain point, I'm like, all right, I've kind of mastered this. What's next? So I go to my manager and he's like, well, within this business, this fund administration business, the next step is a manager. I'm like, all right, so basically the same arm, just more seniority. How do I get closer to becoming that guy with the suspenders and a football that just attacks a Bloomberg terminal, right? So they say, okay, well, we have a risk and valuation team where you assess the assets that these hedge funds hold. Some of them are stocks, some of them are bonds, some are them like the Tropicana orange juice factory. So I
Mm,
joined that team, and this is where I was able to bring in the calculus and algebra that I learned in university and put that together. Again, just dominated this really quickly. And I said, guys, what's next? And they're like, again, like there's a manager here. I'm like, okay, I got to figure this out. So I call this recruiter. Her name's Anne Marie, and I'm like, Anne Marie, I need a more badass job. And she's like, all right, what kind of job you want? So I explain to her, I need to
mhm,
be an investor at a hedge fund. And
mhm,
she goes, yeah, that's not going to happen. You do not have the experience. You do not have your MBA, and I don't have the connections. Like, oh,
mhm,
okay, fine. Then just like find me a place somewhere at a bank or something. I'll try to refocus and change my hunt. She gets into an elevator in Toronto, get this. And there's this woman sitting in this elevator that is so pregnant, she's ready to explode.
mhm,
And Anne Marie asked her, she's like, what's going on? And this lady's like, I've got to go on mat leave. Half my team is on mat leave. I don't like, we're short staffed. And Anne Marie's, where do you work? And so she mentions this asset manager, and and she says, what department? She goes, fund accounting. So Anne Marie goes, well, I got this guy from Kitchener that wants to do
mhm,
fund
mhm.
account or wants to get into an asset manager. So
Yeah.
they pull me in. I have my interview on Christmas Eve. I get the job right at the peak of the like financial crisis, the 2007, 2008 financial crisis. And I
Yep.
got to do fund accounting. So I'm sitting here doing this fund accounting. And what I've managed to do is I've managed to take a department of 4 people that took all day to do this. And I've cut it down to just me getting it done by noon. So the CFO there kind of, and he's like an industry legend. Everyone knows
Mhm,
him.
mhm,
Despite
mhm,
only being the CFO, he probably has more clout than any rank like on Bay Street. He kind of notices this, and he goes, all right, cool. Well, let's see how you could do with the admin team. So I revamped the admin team. Then he takes me into the sales team, which blew my mind. Like we're managing $22 billion. Okay, there's some serious juggernauts here,
mhm,
and you better
mhm,
have an all-star sales team.
mhm,
Apparently, they needed help. So I went in there and I started coaching these guys. And he takes me out for a 36-ounce steak, and he goes, "Listen, what do you want to do?" I'm like, I got to be one of these investors. And he says to me, okay, I can make that happen, no problem. But if that happens, you're not going to have any respect. You're going to be the teacher's pet that got a promotion
mhm,
because I am who I am. You got to
mhm,
earn this. I said, no problem. He goes, I'm going to introduce you to the director of research, and you're going to start doing research in your spare time. No, anyone who's listening to this, when you go home, do not watch Game of Thrones, do not drink beer, do not hang around and do fun stuff. If you do fun stuff, you are constantly going to be an employee because you're
mhm,
separating work from personal life. You're trying to have this work life balance. It's
mhm.
bullshit. What you need to have is work life harmony. Okay. So,
Say
in
more.
your,
Say more. Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
So, in your spare time, you got to be learning things that are going to make you better, not
Mm-hmm.
just brain dead. Oh, let's watch Captain America.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
Um,
You talked about that kitty game, that killing the kitties.
okay. That happens once a year. Once a
Okay. All
year.
right. Just making sure.
Okay. Um,
Keeping you
so,
honest.
well, thank you. I appreciate that. Honesty is important. So I start doing all these research reports at night, and in the meantime, my mentor there, he's like, "I'm going to give you free reign over this company. We are on the 45th floor on Bay Street. We are a massive juggernaut dealing with the most richest people in the world. You get
Mm,
to do whatever you want. You're
mm,
my idea guy, and I will finance it." So, like, I overhauled the ops team. I had us lease out a second floor, did hiring, got a whole bunch of the tech stuff, like, reverted. While at night, I'm sitting here and I'm doing analysis. I'm reading Goldman Sachs reports, 10K, like all this sort of stuff. And I'm delivering these reports to the director of research, and nothing's happened. He's kind of like, this is good. Try again. This is good. Try again. Maybe you should try this. And I hear through the grapevine that he's taken my reports and he's given it to other analysts, and they're actually executing on them. They're making these investments that I'm calling. And so I'm kind of like, all right, dude, what's going on? He's like, you know what? I don't think you'd really ever be a good business analyst, an investment analyst. I don't think you understand how a business works. I don't think like look at me now, right?
Uh-huh.
I don't think like the team's gonna really. I'm
Mm.
like, what the hell, right? Unbeknownst, there was some sort of mutiny going on within senior management where somebody was supposed to become CEO and didn't become CEO and whatever. And this jerk of a director of research decided that he's going to take over the company. And his arch nemesis was my mentor because my mentor would not vote for him because this
Mm.
guy was spineless, uneducated, and was going to tank the company. So he eventually ended up getting rid of everyone, the CFO, his
Mm-hmm.
assistant, his protege, his whole department. Needless to
Yep.
say, after that, this company, which is super wholesome, became like the Wolf of Wall Street: hookers, cocaine, sexual harassment suits. That guy got
Wow.
booted. He got booted, and
Mm.
the old CEO had to come in and save his place. So I'm like, what do I do? So I see my buddy online post a survey on my first day out of work. I fill out the survey. I'm like, I haven't talked to you since elementary school. Let's meet up. And so he comes around and he says, hey, man, listen, I was sitting in a movie theater and I was playing with the 3D glasses. And when you put them a different way over top of each other, they make something different on the screen. And I was like, all right, like, what are you going to do with this? He's like, I don't really know. I'm like, well, listen, we could have multilingual subtitles. We could have parallel storylines. You see the same thing. You could see two different things on the same film screen. You could
Mm-hmm.
watch basketball games from ref cam or bird's eye cam. All you got to do is look through the different bifocals, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
Yep.
we got the
Mm-hmm.
creator of this, who, although working out of Beverly Hills, of 3D, lives here in Waterloo, helped us patent this stuff, and we're
Wow.
like, now we need to sell it. So
Yep.
we need, so we our audience is going to be Hollywood studios, right? So we can't get a hold of anyone. You know, this place is locked down. We're trying to figure out all these emails, whatever. We get two meetings. We get on a plane, we fly down to Hollywood, and by the time our plane lands, both meetings are canceled. We're like, we're here for 2 weeks.
My
We
gosh.
we need to do
Mm-hmm.
something.
Mm-hmm.
So we're calling, and the team is with us, and they're like, hey, my name is Joe. I represent this and this company. I'd love to come meet with your tech team, and just keep getting hangups. I'm like, we got to change this. So I get the phone number for James Cameron's office, and I call him, and I go, hey, listen, is Jim there? The receptionist is like an actress.
Uh-huh.
Everyone wants to is a
Uh-huh.
struggling act. I'm like, yeah. Tell Jim Rob is calling, and tell him I'm going to be there tomorrow to make some time for me. She's like, okay, no problem, no problem. I was like, this is awesome. So we drove to James Cameron's studio.
Are you
We got
serious?
through security. We got through the gates, and then
Yes.
somebody caught on to us and chased us out of there. But we did this for Robert Downey Jr., Brad Pitt, J.J. Abrams, Will Smith, Will Ferrell, Ben Stiller, all their independent studios. We did this for Sony, Universal, Fox. Actually, we snuck into the Sony Christmas party where their HR department was trying to figure out if we were moles for Paramount. That's a whole other story. We eventually get a deal with Paramount, and they're going to film Paranormal Activity 6 using our technology. So what happens here is they we have this investor who is a Hollywood celebrity, and he gets into some legal trouble. He had a security camera right at the front of one of his Airbnbs, the entrance, just in case anyone's trying to break in. He can see. His neighbor calls him and said, "Listen, dude, you're having a party. One of your renters is having a party. Landlady is going to kick you out. You better shut this party down." So he calls him and says, "You're having a party. You need to shut this down." This was two females at the height of the Me Too movement that tear his place apart, find cameras, file voyeurism charges against him, which he's been acquitted of. But he basically is unemployable. Paramount pulls their deal from us. And what do we have left? We're like, well, we might as well try to change these glasses that we've invented and use them in gaming. So we start pitching gaming studios, all of whom are broke. And we're sitting there and we're like, what are we going to do? And then news pops up and says, virtual reality is now going to be consumer ready. I'm like, well, we've already kind of forayed into gaming.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Let's do this VR thing. How are we going to do it? We're going to start an arcade. You guys are all crazy. This is the fad. Cineplex wanted to buy like the
Mm-hmm.
majority
Mm-hmm.
of our company. They said, without us, you won't last longer than 3 years. Here we are going on a decade now. And the rest is just history.
Oh my gosh.
And that was the
Ha-
quick version. I got
I
so many
know.
stories.
No, I know. Have you or are you writing a book?
No, but I have a box that's labeled for my biographer.
Okay. No, seriously, seriously. Like fleshing out some of those stories, because I know you were plowing through because, yeah, we don't want to be on here today for 2 to 3 hours, but
Yeah.
But I would love to hear the longer version. I'll tell you that.
Okay.
I have a totally random question.
Okay.
What do you suck at? Because you're so good at so many things, but you've got to suck at something.
Um, I mean, I suck at so many things, right? Like there's so many things I suck at, but I'll tell you this. I am absolutely sick and tired of myself. I have so many conversations in my head about
Mm, mm-hmm,
everything,
mm-hmm,
not just business. When I see something on the news, I've like my natural inclination is to gather all the data, generate an opinion, have an internal dialogue. Like
mm-hmm,
I'm sick of
mm-hmm,
listening to myself, you know?
mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
maybe I suck at unplugging.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Um, do they have characters? Like, do you sort of think this voice is this is this? Like, are
Totally,
they, yeah,
totally,
yeah.
totally. There's probably some sort of schizophrenic thing going on in
Uh-huh.
there. I have staff meetings, you know, you
I
talking
use
to
that with
myself.
my clients, with my
Yeah,
coaching clients. I talk about a committee and who's at the mic, you know? So I say, you know what? Some of these people you want on your committee, you just don't want them leading the meeting,
yeah, yeah.
right?
That's right. Exactly.
They
Yeah,
can contribute, they can chime in, and especially when it comes to the fear voice, for example, or caution, right? You want
yep,
that voice present.
yep.
You want that voice there. But yeah,
Totally.
you do not want to give that voice the mic and
Well, you
have
know
it
what?
chair the meeting.
On that note, like there's this thing called low latent inhibitions. Have you heard of this by chance?
I have not.
Okay,
No.
so your average person has latent inhibitions, which for lack of a better word, just knows like they can focus, right? Like you see a door and you know that's a doorknob, you know that when you turn it, it opens the door.
Okay.
People with low latent inhibitions go much deeper. That is a doorknob. I wonder if it uses this mechanism or this mechanism. If it is a one side locking, another side not locking. How do all these different
Mm,
things work? So this is very different than like ADD or HD. It's like hyper focus.
mm, mm-hmm,
I think the best example of this is if you've ever seen Prison Break, the TV show.
mm-hmm.
Michael Scofield. He's got low latent inhibitions. Okay,
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
so I was
Interesting.
looking around online and I'm like, this is kind of like it sounds like me, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I went on to like some Facebook support groups and stuff, and I hated it because everyone in that Facebook support group is basically sitting there trying to show everyone else how genius they are, right? Like,
Okay.
have you guys ever thought that if like the meteor hit this part of the earth and I'm like, nobody thinks about that, dude. You know what I mean?
Mm, mm-hmm,
But I did some reading, and it's funny that we mention these voices. Is they
mm-hmm,
say people with low latent inhibitions usually go one of two ways. Um, if they are not creative, they can fall into clinical schizophrenia, but if they are
mm,
creative, there is a likelihood that they would fall into like extreme high level, high IQ genius territory, which explains why everyone's trying to do that on Facebook in these groups, right?
sure,
And so
sure.
for me, I thought to myself, if I've got any form of low latent inhibitions, I
Mm-hmm,
have to stay creative. I've got to
mm-hmm,
do stuff. I've got
mm-hmm,
to travel. I've got to play instruments. You know,
mm-hmm,
somebody once,
mm-hmm.
like, it's so cliche to quote Steve Jobs, but he said, you know, when a creative person does something that a non-creative person couldn't, the non-creative person says, how'd you do that? And the creative person says, well, I just did it. You know, to them,
Mm,
it's not nothing special. It's because they've explored so many different facets of life and the world that they're able to synthesize solutions that somebody else can't.
mm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Can you sleep at night? Or do
Yeah,
you have trouble turning off? No?
no.
Okay. Okay.
I have sometimes I have lack of discipline to turn off. Like
Mm,
for me, it's
mm-hmm.
like, okay, now I'm going to sleep. I lie down and I'm out. There's no problem.
Okay.
But
Mm-hmm.
it's just that making that decision. Should I go to sleep or can I
Yeah.
rock this off another 30 minutes,
Sure.
you know? Yeah.
Yeah. Do I have some more stuff to do to accomplish? Okay. And you mentioned playing an instrument. Are you still in a band? Do you still play in a band?
Actually, the last time we practiced was pre the lockdowns. So
Okay.
during lockdowns, everyone sort of decided to stay away from each other. And yesterday, I was driving around and a song from my favorite band of all time came on, named Led Zeppelin. Maybe you've heard of
Uh-huh.
them.
I've heard of them. Yeah. It sounds familiar. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I was singing and rocking out behind the steering wheel so
Mm,
much. I was like, man, we
Mm.
got to get the band back together. We got to get the band back together. So
Mm-hmm.
they're all
Mm-hmm.
traveling right now. When they get back next week, I'm gonna be like, fellas, Monday night practice. Let's do this.
Yes, I could see that being almost meditative, like for you. Something like that, like a type of outlet similar to the video game that you let yourself play once a year, where you can get kind of wrapped up in that single thing, but it's not using your brain the same way.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
it would get kind of relaxing. Like I find, well, and so do you still do kickboxing?
I do. I was there this morning.
Okay. Because
Yeah.
do you find that sort of therapeutic?
Yeah, that's therapeutic from a standpoint of releasing frustration and anger.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
you know what I
Mm.
found? So for all of your listeners, I think you're sleeping on this if you haven't tried this.
Mm.
What I
Hmm.
found as the most therapeutic, hear me out here and don't laugh, is something called ASMR. Have you heard of this?
I have, but I do typically giggle at it because it seems kind of bizarre, some of it, but say more.
Okay, so
Mhm.
most people see ASMR as listening to people eat. That's usually
Uh-huh.
what happens online,
Uh-huh.
right? And like the smacking of the saliva and the mouth sounds and like that actual form of ASMR is called mukbang. That's just what's become
I did
trendy.
not know that. Okay. Yeah, I've seen more of the like nail tapping,
Yes,
head
yeah.
massage,
Yes.
that type. Okay.
So
Hmm.
ASMR, autonomous sensory meridian response. So basically triggers this feeling in you like you sometimes sort of get like goosebumps or chills, right? And it
Okay.
totally relaxes you. But
Uh-huh.
everyone has a different type of trigger. For some people, like sometimes when you go get your hair done and like just somebody touching your hair.
Okay. Just give
That's
me a
what I'm
minute.
saying. That's
Yes, yes,
so for
yes.
some people it's
Mm,
touch, for some
yes.
people it's visual, like different lights, and for some people it's binaural or through audio, especially
Uh-huh.
like stereo sound. That's why they'll have those microphones with their ears,
Mm,
right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
So for me, I get triggered heavily by like really bassy sounds. So if
mm,
you take a really thick book and
mm-hmm,
a pair of nails and just sort of tap on it, and the reverberation, the deep reverberation of that thick book
mm-hmm.
just totally mellows me out. I'm like
Mm.
jello. I will fall over. Yeah.
Hmm. What about some of the things like the different color sounds? So, like brown noise, for example, which is like a lower sound than white noise. What about something like that?
I mean, those worked for me for a while, but I think I
Okay.
sort of became numb to them. Like I needed like
You need
heavier
more.
drugs. Yeah.
Let's see. See, there's so many things we can still talk about. Are you still skiing as well?
I am. Yep. Yeah.
This
I
would have
was
been a
just
good year for it, or are not. Well, like, do you go somewhere? Because I know it. Notice it said big mountain skier, and I don't think we
yeah.
have the biggest mountains around here. Do you travel to ski?
Yeah, usually what happens is a group of friends and I will rent out like a big chalet somewhere and
Mm-hmm.
we will do like tons of skiing, right? So like I'm talking like helicopter skiing, cat skiing, falling off cliffs. So we had done like the whole like West Coast, all the different resorts in Canada and the US, and then
Yeah.
we started venturing off into the Alps and doing some of that sort of stuff. The vast majority of this group has now sort of settled down and had families, so they've got to do smaller hills as they teach their kids to ski. So I still
Mm-hmm.
ski given the opportunity, but it's not
Yeah.
as sexy as it once was.
Sure. Sure. Are you
Yeah,
an adrenaline junkie?
yeah, absolutely.
He's like, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And have you learned about dopamine upregulation and downregulation of dopamine? Have you
So
heard about this?
I've heard about it, and I've
Okay.
seen a lot of things pass my desk about it,
Mm.
and my
Hmm.
mindset has always been, I should look into this sometime. Right now, I got stuff to
Uh-huh.
do.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I have found it very interesting and helpful to remind yourself. So when you do something difficult, so something that would not, give you dopamine, the activity itself, then it's going to bring your dopamine level down, but then afterwards your body wants to stay at a certain level of dopamine, so it is going to up regulate.
Really, eh?
So I started using this for myself to do something that I didn't want to do, to remind
Hmm.
myself, if you do this hard thing, you're actually going to get a dopamine reward from yourself after.
Hmm.
It's very interesting.
I could buy into that. I mean,
Hmm.
one thing I'd say is that as an entrepreneur, especially if you've been through the trenches, you kind of realize that nobody's coming to save you, right? You got to do this, and you got to do this in the face of good times or bad times. You have to be resilient. You have to push through. So, what I've sort of learned is reliance on whether it's, dealing with the different dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, all that sort of stuff, or on stimulants like coffee or energy drinks or all that sort of stuff is just a handicap because nothing's going to change in my workload. I still have to do it. I still have deadlines. I still have people dependent on me. One of my teammates says every day I get up and I do the easy stuff because I need that dopamine fix. Whereas on the opposite side,
Hmm.
nearly every sort of motivational speaker, they tell you wake up in the morning and eat the frog first. Do what you
Yes,
don't
Brian
want to do.
Tracy. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
to me, it's ah,
What's
like
your approach? Like, which of those do you tend to go to? The hard thing or the easy thing first?
I will do the thing that is highest priority.
Okay, and
Sometimes they're easy.
how do you determine that?
I mean, there's a few factors. Some of it would be like, am I the bottleneck? Does somebody need to do
Mm.
something really
Mm-hmm.
important and I'm bottlenecking it?
Yeah.
Is somebody going to come and shut down my business and take all my money and send me to a creditor? Like that becomes,
Sure. So
are we
urgency. Yeah.
right? Are we on the
Mm-hmm.
verge of creating some sort of massive big deal that we need to move forward with? Like,
Mm.
so priority, I guess, is subjective.
Mm-hmm. Are you familiar too with the concept of strengths from the idea of a strength is something that makes you feel strong? So when you do this thing, you actually feel, and I don't mean physically strong, I mean mentally, emotionally strong. And
No,
with
I haven't
that,
heard of that.
okay, yes, I actually learned about it through Marcus Buckingham. Can't believe the name
Okay.
came to me. That's great. He takes that approach in trying to get people, rather than working on their weaknesses, right, to lean more into their strengths. With the goal being, if you could ideally get to a place in your work, in your business, where 80% of the time you're working in your area of strength. There's almost always going to be at least 20% that you have to do that isn't in your area of strength. But anyway, working toward that. But he says it's not what you're good at, because there's things we're good at that drain you.
Yeah.
So the idea is you're good at it, but also you are, I guess you could say, you're kind of energized by it, or you feel strong when you're doing it. So identifying what are those activities, and if he's working with a person, he's going to try and figure out then the other things to delegate, so that
Hmm.
they can be spending the majority of their time in that space for maximum impact.
Yeah, I hear that. I actually just read a book. I think it's called How to Buy Your Time Back by Dan Martell, maybe.
Okay.
Um, and like I've read a whole bunch of Simon Sinek stuff and all that sort of
Mm.
stuff. And I agree with a lot of it, but a lot of it I also consider like in order to be in that space, like it's a luxury to be in that space. If you could
Yes.
figure out where your
Yes.
time is and be able to
Yes.
delegate it, that means
Yes.
you already are making money. You have a team you can delegate to.
Yes.
But entrepreneurs, especially anyone listening to this, like it's harder than anything you've ever done. In fact,
Mhm. So what's been easier than you thought?
falling asleep. I am so
Yeah.
tired.
Okay, good. Yeah, yeah. Turning that
uh,
brain off. Yeah.
yeah. There, I really don't set expectations very much for myself. Although my mentors would probably disagree with that. I think they all tell me I set expectations too high for myself. But I think my counter to that is I just set expectations, which in my mind are table stakes. And it's the mentors or the other people with these opinions that are actually shortchanging themselves and me by saying my expectations are too high. So when I set expectations for staff, it is sincerely out of desire to help them grow. And it's frustrating when they don't meet those expectations because of very, very simple things, like,
Hmm. Hmm.
hey, I was cleaning the windows. And then I went home and I'd come in and I'd be like, why the hell is a bucket and a rag here? Well, I was cleaning the windows yesterday. Why wouldn't you just put this away? Like to
Uh-huh.
me, this
Uh-huh.
expectation is status quo. It is table stakes,
Yeah, yeah. No, exactly. Exactly. Oh. Oh my gosh, there's still so many things I want to talk about. You're just gonna have to come back. It's
Okay, I
just
dig it. I
the
could
way
do
that
that.
it's, yeah, you can handle that.
Yep.
But I do want to, I want to open it up and say, is there something that we haven't talked about? So I know there's also your volunteer activities. You also, do you still have an active podcast yourself?
Yeah. Yeah. With Angela
Okay.
Cote. Yeah. Engine Rob
Yeah.
Rants.
Okay.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about that.
I mean, it's just a franchising podcast. It's just her and I. We rant for 10 minutes every week.
Yeah.
Her and her father, they created the iconic Canadian brand M&M Meats. So she has a lot of experience in franchising. And on my
Mm.
end, Control V is a franchise system.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime I get an opportunity with my kickboxing coach, we have another one called Mindset Motivated.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So we just talk about different motivational stuff, which I know is all over the internet these days, but sometimes it's just nice to sit down and chat. Yeah. So I
Mm-hmm.
do that
Mm-hmm.
podcasting. Yep. I'm on the board of directors for One Roof, which is
Mm-hmm.
a shelter for at-risk and homeless youth here. As I mentioned earlier, I started a bookkeeping company, and it was mainly out of necessity or frustration with current bookkeeping companies that charge an arm and a leg and do subpar work. Again, not meeting my expectations. I'm like, this
Ah,
could get done
yes.
faster, better at a lower rate.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm one of the founders, principals, leads, whatever you want to call it, of Good Company Productions, which is a local music production company. So we put on concerts, we represent artists, we film music videos. That's just a passion project of mine. I love music. I love
Yeah.
playing it. I love
Mm-hmm.
listening to it. Um,
Yes. Gonna have to introduce you to my husband. Yeah.
okay, cool,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
cool. I dig it.
Yeah. I think you'd both get along very well. Mm-hmm.
Cool, good.
Yeah.
What kind
Mm-hmm.
of music? I think you told me what kind of music he was into.
Yeah. Currently, so
Yep.
he's doing a tour of Rogers, Ritchie, and Robinson, the music of
Yes,
Kenny
yes, that's
Rogers,
right.
Lionel Richie, Smokey Robinson. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Really.
cool.
Yeah. It's pretty great. Yeah. But
Good.
he
I'd love to meet
loves
him.
his style. Like he's eclectic with what he enjoys and what he would sing. Like, yeah, he'd love to be in like a rock band,
Yeah.
and he can do that kind of stuff too.
All right. I
So
look forward to meeting him then.
yeah, oh yeah, maybe I'll bring him out to one of the next networking events.
Sure, absolutely. I think that's actually tomorrow.
Oh, which one is tomorrow?
That one's in Stratford.
Okay, all right. I should
Yep.
see what I'm up to tomorrow. Yes, I was thinking
Okay.
about the bigger one. Do you go to those ones as well?
I do. Yeah. I go to
Okay.
probably about 6 networking events a month
Mm.
between the locally connected network that we're both a part
Mm-hmm.
of, as well
Mm-hmm.
as the Chamber of Commerce in Kitchener, the Chamber of Commerce in Cambridge, and soon I will be adding the Hamilton Chamber and their networking events.
And tell me, what are you hoping to get out of all that networking?
I actually just had this conversation with my director of operations.
Mm-hmm.
Every single thing about Control V
Mm-hmm.
has been as a result of network. Okay. So we
Mm-hmm.
found a real estate because of networks and the deal that we got on it. Our insurance, our contractors, the games we carry, the deals we've got on our hardware, the customers we bring in, the
Mm-hmm.
outstanding marketing team, everything has. None of it has just been, let's Google to see if we can find somebody. It's always been as a network. So
Mm-hmm.
when I go to these networking events, I'm not looking to gain anything. I'm looking to find a person, add them to my Rolodex in my brain. So when then I need something, they're already there. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, we
Mm-hmm.
just ran a postal mailer, which we haven't done in like nearly 10 years. And one of our locations ran a postal mailer. We got it for 3 times cheaper. And it's
Wow.
because the other guy
Yeah.
just Googled, how do I do this with Canada Post? I was like, I know this guy named Steve. I'm gonna call him. What
Yeah.
can you do, Steve? Yeah.
Great, great. Yeah, I love it. I love it. I appreciate so much in-person stuff too, especially since the lockdown, right? Like when we couldn't be with people, it's just so great to be able to be with people. I still sometimes am out and it'll hit me and I'll be like, yeah, not that long ago, we couldn't do this. We couldn't meet
Yes.
this
Yeah.
way. And
We're
yeah.
hugging people through
Oh,
plastic screens. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, so, so great. Okay. Anything we haven't touched on that you think you want to touch on or that you think is important to talk about?
There is a lot we haven't touched on, but
Yeah.
nothing
Yeah.
specifically or explicitly that I want to or think is important.
Okay. Okay. But except when we hang up and we go, dang it, why didn't we talk about
Dang
it?
it.
Then
Gotta do this again.
we'll just have to do a repeat. No problem.
Yes.
Okay. I do have some rapid fire questions just for funsies. You
Okay.
ready?
Give it to me.
Morning person or night owl?
Night owl.
Okay. If you could teleport anywhere right now, where would you go?
The beach.
Which beach?
Uh, Probably somewhere in the Caribbean. Foreign speaking country with different food. I mean, maybe somewhere in
Mm,
Africa or whatever, but just
mm,
get into a different culture for a bit.
sounds awesome. What's a book, podcast, or movie that you'd recommend?
Boy, okay. So my favorite book is Liar's Poker, by Roger. I think it's, but no, it's not. Roger Lowenstein wrote Long-Term Capital Management. That was good. Michael Lewis. He's the guy that wrote
Okay.
The Blind Side, which was a movie with Sandra
Yes.
Bullock. He's the guy that
Yes.
wrote the Brad Pitt Jonah Hill baseball movie Moneyball.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah,
yes. Okay. And
that
it's called
Liar's Poker. It's
Liar's
basically
Poker.
about the start of like the financial like the big money making hedge funds. So it's not really interesting to everyone. If you're looking for something interesting, anything written by Walter Isaacson, he's a biographer. He
Mm-hmm.
wrote an
Mm-hmm.
incredibly awesome biography on Steve Jobs and Elon Musk, just outstanding. So that's my book. My podcast, I don't really listen to many of them, but I would recommend Under the Influence.
Okay.
It's a
Mm-hmm.
marketing podcast, a Canadian marketing podcast.
Yep.
And then in terms of movies, lately I've been watching a lot of like Sleepless in Seattle, like You've Got Mail, and all that
Mm-hmm.
sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But I'd say my favorite movie is going to be Boiler Room.
Mm, okay.
It's got Ben Affleck, and
Okay. Not sure
yeah,
if I've seen it. I'll have to check it out and see if I have.
yeah, it's
Okay. Love
awesome.
it. Thank you.
Mhm.
What's a hidden talent or skill that most people don't know you possess?
um, Shoot, I'm an incredible cook, and I love cooking. I love food. I have a really good sense of hearing, a really good sense of smell. Like a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people don't know that my decisions and how I operate are so impacted by external stimuli. They're
Mm,
like, "Oh,
okay.
he's just
Mm-hmm.
winging it, and he's getting lucky." I'm like, "Nope, nope, not at all."
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's good to know. If you weren't in your current profession, what's a job you'd love to try?
Like touring rock star, like just slamming away on a guitar and
Mm,
screaming into the mic.
mm-hmm.
I don't know if you'd consider that a job, but you know what? I gotta
Sure.
tell
Yeah.
you, I miss the days of being a bank teller or selling batteries at Radio Shack, and just my pay is somebody else's problem. It gets deposited into my bank account. I miss like the interaction with the customers and just
Uh-huh.
the simple, easy, mundane tasks, not
Yes.
having to solve the world's
Yes.
problems every single day.
Yes. Robert,
So put me into like, I don't know,
listen,
cashier.
you know that I can relate, right? You know this.
Yep, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah, yeah. I don't get to turn my brain off either. Yeah.
Yeah.
And for short periods of time, a few years ago, I was kind of between a couple things and I did take like a part-time office job and oh my gosh, it was therapeutic. I thought I would leave and go, I don't need to think about this again
Yes.
until I
Yeah.
sit back at this desk tomorrow.
Yep.
It was
Miss that.
amazing. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. That's a pro of that. And finally, what's a motto or mantra you live by?
I go big or go home.
I'm just not surprised.
Yeah.
Or stay thirsty, my friends.
Yeah. Stay thirsty.
That's got to be your new one.
Yeah. Well, I always end with stay frosty, which I'm sure you've probably seen
Yes,
my
that's
email
right.
signature. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
That's a
See, so you
military
must
term. Yeah.
I feel like subliminally you kind of know you're the most interesting man in the
Yeah.
world.
Oh,
Oh
stop
my
it.
gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay, so fun. This flew by for me. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
me too.
Very, yeah,
It's like almost
awesome,
an hour.
awesome.
Look at this.
I know. And it feels like maybe 15 minutes.
Yep,
So
I hear you.
I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule
I
to
appreciate
talk with
you
me
inviting me
today.
here.
Yeah, so much fun. It's fun for me. It's selfish. because it's fun for me.
It's fun for
So,
me too.
yeah. Well, we'll see you soon. Yeah.
Yes, we will. Stay
Thanks
frosty.
again.
Stay
Yes.
thirsty.
Yeah, you stay thirsty. I'll stay
Okay.
frosty. Okay.